Good morning, Rochelle. How are you?
Doing quite well. How about yourself?
Good.
Good. What are you thinking about all of this stuff about going back to school in the middle of this pandemic? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, we have an extroverted middle schooler and an introverted high schooler. Um, so the plan that DPS has put forward, I think works well for us. And I've read some stuff from the Pediatric Association and seen some things on NPR that say that this could work, being present in school together, spread out. So, I'm sure you're living this like everybody else. It feels like it's week to week, and we're trying not to stress about it. Right now, our extroverted middle schooler will go back and be present, and it's that balance between safety and sanity.
Right.
Yes. So,
Well, thank you for that. Let's start where we normally start. Start by asking you to tell us your name and
okay.
share anything about yourself that you feel comfortable sharing that would help us start our conversation. So please, your name.
Heather Rodriguez, and ask that second question again.
Anything about yourself you would share with us that would help us get to know you a little better, that you feel comfortable sharing. So if you don't feel comfortable, don't raise it. But I mean, anything you want to tell us about you that helps us get to know you a little bit better.
Um, I'm a country girl from the mountains of Virginia who met a surfer boy from Nags Head, North Carolina. And long story short, we ended up in Durham after I attended Duke Divinity to become a United Methodist pastor. My first church, serving at my first church in Raleigh, and then being appointed here to Durham again, coming back to Durham in 2014, where I am now the lead pastor at Duke Memorial United Methodist Church in downtown Durham. So these conversations are personal and they're professional in that language. We use different language in the church. And connects to my life as a mom and a wife and a human being in the world. So
why did you decide you wanted to do work in religion? What was it that brought you there, and what was your thought process once you finished your program and then became a minister?
I grew up in the Mennonite faith tradition. I'm not sure if you're familiar at all with Mennonites. Yeah, you should. Yeah, and I think I felt the call, or using the language of call, I felt that nudge, I felt that pull to connect my life with the church early on. But as a woman, there were limited opportunities, at least in my perspective. And so it really wasn't until, I was in my late 20s attending a church with my husband that the pastor pulled me aside and said, you need to, consider this, pray about this. And so that really began my journey immediately, kind of after that conversation, to seminary. My husband grew up Catholic, and so we joke that we didn't realize this at the time, but Methodist really is in between Mennonite and Catholic. Yeah, and so I think for me, it's about my faith, and it's also about my specific passions and strengths around missional work in the world. So less about being the church in a building and more about being the church in the world.
So I'm going to tell you something, then I'll ask you a question. So I grew up Catholic from elementary school till I started middle school. I went to Catholic school, and then I went to regular kind of churches, and we were in a rural part of South Carolina, so there were what we call holiness churches, and then eventually Baptists and all these other evolutions of religion. And over time, I have lost my love for organized religion, because I think that people use religion to do some terrible things to each other under the name of God, and I don't think that's God-like at all. So I am spiritual, but not religious, and whatever that may mean. And so when you hear what I just said, what is the difference between religious and spiritual?
Yeah, you're starting off with some great questions, Rochelle. I got to drink some more coffee.
I love it.
Religious and spiritual. I think I have rarely met a person who's not spiritual. We even have someone in our church who comes with his wife who says he's an atheist, and I respect and journey with him. I love him, and I think he's probably a little more spiritual than he even realizes, and he may even say that now. It's been a long journey. Spiritual for me is about the createdness of us, that breathing in and breathing out, the beginning and the end. And religion is a way to connect and be communal in our spirituality. But it has been corrupted, and I'm learning more and more about the things that no one taught me, nor the things that I didn't go after. And just last week was in a webinar with the National Methodist Church about the corruption of our Christian history as it relates to, for example, the way that lynchings increased in the South as Christianity increased. So to your point, exactly. And I feel like that is specifically why I'm in the church, is to confess, repent, seek to offer reparations around the harm we've done, as we seek to continue to be that place where spiritual beings can connect and grow together.
Yeah. I heard Oprah Winfrey had done a few years ago something called Master Class, and one of her master class was on something called beliefs. And the head of Motown, and I can't think of his name right now, said that his father told him, God is not in a church, God is inside of you. And when I think about that, like I recognize, like, I'm not a perfect person, but it's rare that I tell an untruth. It's rare that I take that back. I steal pencils all the time. So I just want to go to record and saying that, so if you want to call the police on me, I steal pencils all the time. No matter where I find them, I steal pencils. But for the most part, I am pretty much a honest person. I've made some mistakes in my life, of course, but I'm not perfect. But when I do get to a place where I'm compromised in my thought, in other words, part of me wants to lash out or to do something, there's a voice inside of me that says, that's not godlike. That's not godlike, and so I'm constantly grappling with that. And so going back to your point, so growing up in all these different churches, I think I read the Bible from cover to cover at least 20 or 30 times in my life. And then I started reading other Bibles, the Quran, the Torah, and all these other Bibles, just to understand where we all come from and how we get these philosophies about religion. But what really puzzles me, specifically in Christianity more than anything else, is that we took a small section of the Bible, the story of Ham, and decided to use that as to paint Black people as evil. And although I don't think that's continually taught anymore, somewhere ingrained in who we are, we believe that the reason why Black people are dark, the reason why we have thick lips, wide noses, and whatever it is because we are descendants of Ham, and Ham, who committed this great immortal sin, that we must pay. So it justifies the maltreatment of Black and brown people because they are the descendants of Ham and God cursed him and so forth and so on. So for me, I was so excited about doing this talk with you, and I hope we do it again and again because there's so much I want to know about religion that I don't understand. So you take Roman Catholics, right? So, they were able to, separate people, create these caste systems, some man married to a woman, he cut her head off because you know who I'm talking about, but like all of these things are under the guise of religion. So in your mind, how do you resolve those things? How do you work through those things? And what do you tell people when you encounter those kinds of conversations?
Yeah, I think humans will grab at any tool to build their power, right? And again, like growing up, I had no idea. And even in seminary, just began to learn how the Bible and how Christianity specifically has been used, right, to justify slavery, to justify power over another. And you can take, and this is the tricky part, right? You can take any segment of the Bible and have it stand alone and make it mean what you want it to mean. The idea is to hold all those books together as one story. And so thinking about the Bible as a story and not a book, not a bunch of books, is really important because the overarching story right, is about what we talk about as Christians about the fruits of the Spirit, which is against any kind of interpretation that would demoralize, imprison, oppress. Um, so that for me is a beginning place. Again, I think we have to own the damage that we've done. So when I stand in the pulpit, I'm standing in the pulpit that has been used against, for example, right, African Americans in Durham. So we have to own that history. And again, I just want to name to you, we get, last week we had a leadership meeting and there was pushback against the idea of building, of starting a task force, and everyone voted yes in the end of the conversation. But the pushback against a task force to look at how we will hold ourselves accountable to deconstruct systems of racism, both within our own church and within, the world around us, was, well, we need to do the work, but we just don't, we want it to be, what was the language? We don't want it to be messy, and we want it to be like somehow to be hopeful, and we don't want to begin with confession, and we don't want to begin with the sins that we as an institution have committed. So those are really important conversations to have, because because then the other voices at the table got to say it's painful and it's where we begin. Like in our story, we don't get to Easter without first going through death, first going through Good Friday, and that was named. That was a really beautiful, powerful, and important moment. And that was named by, and that was named by a gentleman in the group who is gay. And so we're also, doing that work as well, right? Especially as our denomination, I don't know how much you know, Rochelle, but as our denomination as a whole, worldwide denomination, stands against full inclusion.
Yeah. I mean, that's yes, well known. I think that I heard someone say not too long ago that the most segregated day of the week is Sunday, because Black people go to Black people's church, Latinx goes to their churches, and white people go to their various things, and you have all of these things about religion that kind of perplexes you, right? So if you're sitting there thinking about this thing, so if you believe, and I am not mean no disrespect whatsoever, but if you believe in Christianity, supposedly God created the world and he made Adam and Eve. So here's Adam and Eve, and we have a world full of people of every single color you can imagine. And there's this one color that holds out as the color, right? White. So when you think about that, even thinking about Jesus, right? So where he was born and where he was raised, where he did his teaching, there's just nowhere in the world he could be white. He might be brown skinned or something, but there's no way he could be white. But we can justify that to say, he had blonde hair and blue eyes. And then you read in the Bible and you read that his feet were like brass, like some part of that, you have to think about this. And I think you made an amazing point a little while ago. We pick out pieces of the book and we make it work for us, right? So we make it make sense, And one of the problems I had was when there was a lot of work around LGBTQ communities and what they could not have access to. And a lot of Black and brown pastors took hard stands against equal rights for these people. And I always ask, how can you want equal rights for yourself, a Black or a brown person, and not want it for another marginalized group, right? And so the reason why I try to stay away from Christianity is because I cannot go into a church and somebody tells me I have to wear a dress, I have to wear my hair in a certain way, or I have to do something right. Because the Bible I have read, and I mean, like I said, I think I've read every one of them that there is. I have never seen that written. I know that they say a woman's supposed to be, you humble yourself to your husband and all of those kinds of things. But, what I'm supposed to look like to come to church, because I'm coming to glorify God. I'm not coming to make people like me or think I have wealth or anything, but I'm coming to glorify God. And so in religion, and I haven't found one yet that I understand completely, why is it that this is the stance you take, right? So, like even the Muslims, Islamic people, I kind of wonder, like, okay, where does this match in what you say Muhammad or God or whatever you call him, where does this match with what he said? So how could 8-10 men take 4 airplanes and fly them into a building and say Allah Akbar, right? So honor to God. What God are you honoring? Because I have not seen a single thing in the Bible that comes close to say kill your brother, man. Now I've heard eye for eye, I've heard all that kind of stuff, but there's nothing in the Bible that says kill. And yet still we do it every day. And it's not clear to me where we get these foundational notions of what our religion should look like. And I would love to hear what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, I just love hearing more of your story, and your perspectives are so important to me, who doesn't always get to sit with people who are asking these great questions, Rochelle, so thank you. And I think I'm just saying yes over and over. Yes, yes. My head's over here shaking a lot because, to your point, it's amazing, isn't it? That we took a human being that absolutely had brown skin and somehow get away with making him white. It still kind of blows my mind. How did we do that? That's about power, and it's about how willing we are as humans to believe a story, especially when it puts us at center. So that's like, I'm not one who gets up and preaches a lot about sin, because it's been in my own life, that's a word that's been used against me. And I think that language of like the things that pull us away from God, like that, for me, sin is not what God does to us. It's what we do ourselves when we choose those things that we know are going to lead to brokenness and not wholeness. And I think one of the things that pulls us away from God the most is that need for being at center. And so in order for white people who wanted the power and had the guns to be at center with Jesus had to look like that. And Jesus does it, and I took the, so helpful. We voted 3 years ago as leaders in the church to take the Racial Equity Institute training. And I took it. My son, who's a teenager, took it, the youth version. And that's not, you don't check the box with that, right? It's on the journey. But oh my word, so helpful to think about the invention of race, right? That race is not God. Race is not a thing of God. It is a construct, and these are words that have been new to me in the last 8 years, built again by people who wanted to justify their power moves to be at center. So, I'm grateful, and just to name it, the work that we're doing at the church I'm in is important and good. And it is, oh my word, so messy and painful, because we're messing with our stories and we're asking ourselves to get out of center. And people have left and people have come. I don't know if that was an answer to your question directly, but I just wanted to say yes to what you're speaking into.
I think that somehow or another, we can justify any behavior, right? So, for someone who's on crack or meth or whatever it is, and they rob their family or they kill somebody, whatever it is, we can justify it because that person was an addict. The person had a problem. We have this debate that's going on in the world about whether all lives matter and Black lives matter. And I often tell people, I think that all lives do matter. We cannot move away from that. But I think what we really need to narrowly focus on is my firehouse station, right? Someone calls the fire department and says there's a house on fire. And so when the fire department gets on the street, they see the house down the street that's burning, but they start putting water on the houses that are perfectly fine. So when you use that analogy to look at all lives matter, it's really almost perfect, right? Because like the house that's burning down is what needs the attention. We are not saying these other houses don't matter. They should be there. It should be well kept, whatever the requirements are where you live. But there's a house on fire. Let's put that house out first, and then we can talk about these other things. So that's not saying blue lives, white lives, brown, whatever color life it is, it matters. It matters to God. But I think that, and this is one of my personal things, please don't hold this against me, but my prayer has always been, whatever the thing is that you hate, that's what you find in hell. Whatever the thing is you hate. So if you don't like fat person, a fat person is the person who's God. If you don't like Black people, that person is God. Whatever it is, because I think that there's so much wrong with the way we formulate ideas in our head about what's right? So someone said to me the other day, which I think was a really great thing, I'm a soccer mom. I've got to get my kid to soccer, or I'm a this. So while a Black man is dying with someone's knee on their neck, I'm only concerned about what's in my wheelhouse. I don't have time to worry about, you know, what's happening to you, because I've got my own issues I've got to deal with, right? Or if I have an autistic child and there's a Black autistic child, I don't care about that Black autistic child because my child has autism and I want to know what to do to help them. And so I think that what I hope we do is we I don't even know if desegregation is the right word, but I think if we find a way to have common language through religion, that might help people. Because I believe a great portion of our society, American and globally, are somehow or another spiritual. Whether they're religious or adhere to a specific religion, I do not know. But I believe we all have that. And if we can reshape the way we think about those things, we are then better as a society, because then you could see me as human. Then you could see my Black skin and my thick nose and my thick lips and my big butt. You could say that's just another human being who looks different than me. And my other analogy is the box of white crayons. So you go to the store to get some crayons, and the only box of crayons that they sell are all white. There's no other color in the box. There's just white crayons. What life do you create from that? You know, what art do you create from that? What world do you create from a box of all white crayons? And I don't know who made crayons. I don't know what the philosophy was, but there are a gazillion. I think you can get 165, or I don't know how many, but you get a lot of variations of color. And then you take that and you apply it to the universe, and that's that divine person up there. When you walk out your door, there's an oak tree. There's a magnolia tree. There's a crepe myrtle. Why would he then, or she, I don't know.
Or she, I love that, or she.
Don't know what that is, but why would that person create a superior race and not create all oak trees? So every tree should be an oak tree, according to the logic that we apply to diversity and inclusion and oppression. Nothing in the yard should be anything but oak trees. You should have nothing else. No other tree. And I think I looked this up not too long ago. I think there are something like 4,000 variations of trees.
Wow.
You know, so how can you get to a place where only one group is the group? Why aren't we all together? You know, as different as we are, as beautiful as we are, and I mean, like every race, as beautiful as we are, how could we be so narrow-minded to think that only the box of white crayons matter?
Yeah. Beautiful and important.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I have a side business where I do, you know, diversity training and consulting, racial equity and injustice and all that stuff. And
Wow.
And a lot of times I find myself even overwhelmed being in the room with a group of people, especially if it's predominantly white people, who are having these conversations with me, telling me I'm wrong, right? So I'm wrong, you know, like here are the justifications why I'm wrong. I'm wrong because of these things. And so as I try to have these conversations, I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm not trying to make you think something different. I'm not trying to make you believe anything. I'm just trying to give you some tools that you can work with. And everyone I've talked to thus far, especially white, have said we've been having these conversations with our family. You know, they've been uncomfortable conversations. We keep having them over and over again. What rings in my mind is like, okay, it's great to talk. Love it. Let's see what the actions are. Let's see what we do. How do we change this narrative? And it's not just for Black people, but it's from Latino people. It's for women. It's for the gay community. It's for everyone that we change the narrative. So you don't judge someone because they're gay. You don't judge someone because they're transgender. You don't. What is the value of that? What do you gain by doing that? You know, so when we paint people by these constructs that say here's who you are, it gives us the ability to make them inferior. You know, you're a white woman, I'm a Black woman. You can look at me and say, well, she's not as smart as I am because all of these things that history told you is true. Here we are now at this place in life where there's a question about really what is it? What is the difference between you and I? I'm assuming I'm older than you are. I'm a mother. I work. I'm a productive citizen. I'm a technologist where you're a minister, but what's the difference between you and I? And these are the kind of questions I ask people to often ask themselves. What is the difference between people of equal qualities, right? So, you know, what's the difference? Is it simply the color of one's skin? And if that's true, when you die, that skin fades off. What are you then? You know, so who are you then? So I hope you and your people will start answering these questions for all of us so we can understand. And we don't have to have these protests and looting and burning and all that stuff. And again, I don't sanction any of that, but I do understand why. How do I get your attention? So if I just walk up and down the street with a sign, you're just going to ignore me. But if I put your building on fire, because money is everything, because the reason why I asked you that question when we first began about school, this is the reason why the country wants to open up. Is not to save lives, but to restore the economy. And in my mind, 1920, we had the worst economic depression ever. We came back from that. We can afford to go back there. The people who are rich will stay rich. The people who are not will struggle, but we will recover. So if you're going to put someone's money over life, you're really making I think, sin ain't even the word. That's Holocaust-like. That's slavery-like, to risk someone's life so you can maintain your economy. What is your economy? What is it? And so I am grateful that the church and other groups will start thinking about these things in ways that are not separating or dividing, but are coalescing, bringing us together, seeing how difference is good. And so I always encourage people, go outside and look in your yard. Just look around your yard. I don't care where you live at, somewhere around, you got trees and plants and things like that. Go look in your yard and then come back and ask yourself the question, what's wrong with diversity? Because if diversity is wrong and I am inhuman or inferior, that oak tree out there or that magnolia, whatever tree you want to pick does not belong. You need to cut them all down. Cut them down from the root, dig it up from the ground, throw it away and burn them up. That's what you need to do. Because I don't think that's the divine's purpose. I don't think this is the divine's way of doing things.
Yeah. And to your kind of invitation for the church to be the answer, I think the church needs to be a part of the work in the world again, right? And so this is why conversations like this, Rochelle, are so helpful and a gift to me, because it's a connection to all the voices in our world, not just the voices within our walls. And the pandemic, one of the gifts of the pandemic is that it has taken down our walls, right? We cannot be together. We've been virtual, and that has kind of opened up our work in ways that I pray are really fruitful. And to your point too, it does need to be embodied. This conversation isn't just about words, it's also about actions. And I have a dear friend who is a pastor who happens to be African American, and recently she said to me, whites need to embody this, and they need to also step in emotionally, because they're desensitized, because their story has given them we lament the fact that the white story has meant that white people have had to step away emotionally and desensitize themselves. Because how do you worship a God of all on a Sunday morning and then pack your picnic basket and go to a lynching, right? You have to, as a group of people, put up a wall, and in order to somehow justify those two things together. That was a really helpful conversation for me as I think about the ways that we're called to respond as a white church in downtown Durham, right? That it has to be about, and so we're offering a new journey that is about listening, learning, loving, and leveraging. So it's not just about learning, it's also about relational listening and loving, so that we can leverage our power in the world through, right, changes to systems and marching in the streets and action. So thank you also for lifting up that important point.
I have a segment of my company. It's called Learn, Do, Change. So, learn something, so whatever it is you learn, but it doesn't necessarily have to be diversity or this, but learn, and then take what you learn and do something with it and produce a change, whether it's a change in you, whether it's a change in your community, whatever, but that it's very important to learn first. You really need to learn. And I think you made this point. I've heard this from several other people. My elementary nor post-secondary education taught me anything about the things that I have learned and that I've heard from the stories of my ancestors, right? My grandmother, my grandfather, the stories that they passed down to their children and so forth and so on. Like, I was raised in a part of South Carolina, it's a little town called Walterboro. And my mother had a fourth grade education. I was adopted. She was my paternal aunt, and she adopted me. And she would say almost every single day, she'd pray 23rd Psalms. When she finished praying, she would then say, get a good education, get the hell out of South Carolina. They went in combination, you know, just like that.
Wow.
Get a good education, get the hell out of South Carolina. And that has stuck with me today. You know, I didn't get my first college degree until I was 43 or 45. I don't remember when. It's been a long time now. I got my master's 2 years after I got that, and then I got my doctorate in 2016. And like my whole purpose to me is to give God back something. I want to be a light for him. I want him to look at me and say, you are helping make the world better. You know, these diversity chats are hard for me. They are so painfully hard for me. I mean, my heart hurts every time I have one because I'm trying to tell someone something about my experience, about my life, about me. And I'm not representative of the whole Black community. I'm just what I see around me. But people are like, they don't understand what they're hearing. What they're hearing doesn't make sense to them, you know? So, you know, hear people say, well, my family and I are talking about this, or some racial slur was used in my family, you know, in a conversation. And this is why I learned doing Change Matters. So, you know that a racial slur is not a good thing. Do something about it. Don't say that word no more. And then help that person understand how not to use that word again, right? So that's the change, right? So if I tell you, you know, you cannot call me an angry Black woman, because that's my stereotype. I'm an angry Black woman. My next step is then for you to do something about it. Find out why I come at you the way I do. Why do you get the sense that I'm angry? Why do you think that this is this stereotype that fits me? You know, and then change your philosophy so you can change others, right? So, you know, yep, I do understand Rochelle can be difficult. Rochelle is challenging. She's always asking why. She's pushing back. But why is that? What is that? And that's the do, is to understand what that is. So once you dissect who I am, you see that I'm a really good person. But I've had so much trauma and terrible experiences that I'm always on the defensive. I'm always waiting, you know. So the simple microaggressions, you know, we try to do everything we can in our organization, even for Black people. And at that point, my brain just goes into this other place and I cannot talk anymore. I cannot be civil in the way that is expected. And I think for the white community, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, they want people to be passive, collaborative, docile. You know, they don't want the pushback. They want everybody to behave, right? So if you go back to our Native Americans, our indigenous people, right? So when the first people came here, these Native Americans were welcoming. They taught them, they helped them survive. And what was the result of that? For most of them to be dead, pushed out to some part of the world where they have a casino and that's how they make their money. But that's what they got for helping, you know? So for me as a Black person, trusting a white person means that I have to be vulnerable enough to know that I can recover from the damage that's done, right? So if you and I are, let's say we're buds and, you know, we go out and we have a coffee or something, we go sit down and talk, and you make a statement that to me hurts me. How am I going to respond to that? So I have to learn to breathe, you know, take a few breaths and just say, okay, they don't know any better. You know, or in the Black community, we say, God bless their heart. You know, that's to say, God bless their heart, you know, ask God to have mercy on them, you know, in a way, so that there is something that you can take away from that doesn't destroy you, that doesn't eat away at you. So when you look at the Black and some of the brown population, the reason why we're so poor is because, first of all, we haven't been given a chance to get ahead, right? So we haven't, education, we were denied education, you know, affirmative action, they had a problem with that. So all of the things that would give us an opportunity to be on equal footings with our white colleagues have been denied us. And even now that I work at a major university, your university, I'm a senior technology manager, you know, I have staff and, you know, all of these things, but I'm still voiceless and invisible. If I raise my voice, I'm called a name. You know, I'm still an angry Black woman. I'm not promoted. I mean, there's just so many things. So for me, trusting white people means to be vulnerable enough to be able to recover from whatever damage they have done to you. So what happened to Mr. Floyd, right? So for Black people, you know, when I hear the term defund the police, you know, I mean, I'm not in favor of that. I don't think that's right, because then what happens? You know, when you don't have a police, what happens to crime and what happens around us? I think what we need to do is train the police. I think police need to go through racial equity training. I think they need to go to the adversity training. I think they need to go to microaggression training. I think they need to go to de-escalation training. I think there's so many things that they need to help them not do this, right? Because the only way you can put your knee on a man's neck who's in handcuffs laying face down on the ground for 8 minutes and 46 seconds is he's not a human being to you. He is inferior and inhuman. And in my world, I think that what we, and again, I will speak for myself, I can't speak, I don't hold a voice for all Black people, but what I will say is that we have been tricked so many times. Trust is hard. Trust is really hard. So majority of my colleagues are white and male, you know.
Wow.
I hear things that just discombobulate me completely. But what I've learned to do is swallow it. And so now the next time I'm in that setting and I hear something else, I swallow it. And after a while, you're swallowing all this pain and hurt. It has to come out somehow or another. So it comes out in ways that are not always productive for me or for others that I work with, because I am swallowing so much every day of my life that my response a lot of times is angry, or in some cases considered violent. I mean, I've never hit anybody in my life, but I mean, you know, is considered violent because like my pain is so deep. My pain is so far down, and I carry the pain of my ancestors, right? You know, in I think it's a couple of 3 weeks ago, there was a man hanging from a tree in California, and there was another one somewhere else. I don't remember where he was. I would almost bet my life that no Black person I know would lynch themselves. No Black person. No, I mean, we might do a lot of things to ourselves, but lynching ain't one of them. That ain't something we're gonna do, because that history is in our genes, you know. And there was an article that was written a long time ago, you know, 2014 or so, and it says that both white and Black and brown people have PTSD encoded in their DNA, in their gene part, because of what they've experienced over life. So it's naturally inherent and a part of ourselves, you know. And so my prayer is that if churches can integrate, if churches can see each other as humans, if churches can collaborate, like you're a Methodist, if you can collaborate with the Catholics, the Baptists, and all the others that exist, there's a chance for the whole world. There's a chance for the whole world. But if the churches continue to segregate, hold women back, say women can't be priests and whatever the highest thing is, bishops and whatever, then there is really no hope for the world, because you people are supposed to be the loving people. You're supposed to be the people who hold God in high esteem. You people are supposed to be the people that see the work of the divine. So if you can't fix that, the church can't fix that, it's very unlikely that we as Americans, Islamic, whatever kind of person you are, can fix it, because we hold so dear to what we know to be true that's passed down to us ancestrally, conversation, storytelling, whatever it is, and so it becomes who we are.
Yeah.
So
well, and I just thank you.
I'm counting on you.
Well, and I appreciate you, Rochelle. I mean, I just want to thank you for sharing your story authentically and vulnerably with me. And I'm sorry, you know, I'm sorry for the pain that white people not only have caused, but continue to cause, right? And maybe it's one of the questions I'm thinking of that I have for you, and I don't want to ask this question as if I'm jumping there, but how do you do it? In other words, in the midst of that pain, in the journey of experiencing pain again and again and again, where do you find hope, and where do you find those places where you as a spiritual being are loved and beloved and given space so that your gifts can flourish in the world? What does that look like?
Well, I'll tell you one other little thing. So I work at Duke, I work in the law school, and I had a colleague, I started in July of 2008. He started in November of 2008. And white, brilliant. I mean, literally brilliant. I mean, if there was a technology issue, he knew the answer to it like within seconds. He knew it, and he could teach people who were, you know, genuine experts at these things. That's how smart he was, really, really smart. And he became my little brother. He's a white man. He became my little brother. There's another man in the health system. When my son was at his sickest, this man prayed for me. This man came to my house. He brought his wife. You know, I mean, what I think and what I believe is that, you know, that old phrase, I have black friends, is one of those most hurtful things that you can say. But I think if you have people who care about you, and I have white people who really care about me, really, really care about me. You know, they check on me, they see if I need anything, they help me whenever I'm in a quandary. And then I have white people who I associate with who don't speak to me or speak to me harshly. So what I think that for me, and I think for a lot of black people, you know, so if you live in McDougal Terrace, the exposure to white people is very limited other than what you get when you go to school, right? So you don't have any
Right.
way to develop and promote relationship, right? And relationship, I believe, is the key to this, which is why
Yes.
the churches need to develop these relationships between each other. But relationships are the key to this, right? So I don't think all white people are racist. I don't think anyone should apologize to me. I think what people should do is affect change, bring about change. So if you know that there is a woman named Rochelle Newton in the world who, I don't care who it is that asks me for help, I help. I don't care who it is, I help, no matter what it is. And that's my prayer to my divine. Every day I will do something for someone else. That's my prayer. I tell him that every day. So, and it could be the simplest little thing of cooking something to eat or calling to check to see if you're okay or whatever it is. That's my prayer to my divine. And so my divine has given that to me too, in all colors of people. Latino, Asian, black, white, brown, everything that you can imagine, I have gotten back, you know, that people see me as a human being. You know, they love me, they call me, they check on me. You know, when Mr. Floyd was killed, I can't tell you how many calls I got in that week. I mean, just bombarded. And the majority of them were white people calling, you know, Rochelle, what are you thinking? How are you feeling? So I would just say to you, you know, relationships matter. You talked about the black female pastor somewhere that you and her, those are the kind of things that are going to make change. I do not believe racism is genetic. I do not believe we are born to be racist. I don't believe we're born
Right.
to be divisive. I don't believe we're discriminatory. I believe we teach it. We teach it in our homes, right? And because in our homes, we have this history of our lives, right? So if you're a clan member, your grandfather, your great grandfather, great, keep going back and back. The ability to be a racist or white supremacist or white privilege, whatever it is, exists because you have a history. This is all you know. Like when you take Thanksgiving, so Thanksgiving is the feast of food, right? So we cook turkey, stuffing, you know, all of these things that we make. Why do we make those versus making a flounder or a lamb or whatever it is? Because theoretically, this is what we are told Thanksgiving is: a turkey with dressing, cranberry sauce, you know, and whatever the other accoutrements to that is. But this is what we told Thanksgiving is. And so we all have, literally almost everybody in America and maybe other parts have the exact same Thanksgiving. You know, you might have organic turkey or a fried turkey versus a baked turkey, but we have the same thing. So it's because that legacy that we build on, this is the knowledge that has been passed down to us year after year after year after year. So my children, I have a 41-year-old and a 21-year-old, will have the exact same Thanksgiving I've been having since I can go back in my generation, you know, since I can go back, because this is what we're taught, right? This is what you do. So racism follows that same construct, right? So if your whole family tree has had a problem with race, it's going to keep getting passed down, passed down, passed down, passed down. And you're sitting in your house having your normal dinner, and the N word comes out, and your children are not, you know, outraged or, you know, bothered by it because it's what you've heard
Mm-hmm.
the whole time. So I think it's going to take relationships, people caring about each other, people thinking about each other, people checking in, and to say, if you were to see me on the street, that you would not be afraid of me. If you were to see some of my relatives who are tall and dark, you wouldn't be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Let me give you the reason to be afraid. Now, I'll tell you one other thing, and I'll let you go, but I'll tell you this. So when I was 19 years old, I was raped in broad daylight in Miami, Florida. A man put a knife to my neck and raped me in broad daylight. And the trauma that I still feel for that, I don't go out at night. This happened in broad daylight. And I remember, I don't go out at night. I'm not social. I'm an introvert. You know, I prefer not to be around people because I'm afraid somebody's going to hurt me. I'm always in a posture of fear because of what happened to my body, you know. And so even today, like, so when I was raped, I didn't tell anybody for 7 years, and I bathed, and I keep trying to, even to this day, I'm trying to wash it off. I'm trying to wash it off, and I don't know how to get it off. So the Rochelle that you see is a Rochelle full of life experiences that have shaped me to be the person who I am today. But that tall Black man also has those same experiences. And so if you see a tall, dark man, I don't think it's justifiable to be afraid of him unless he gives you some reason to think that, right? So if he's coming too close, if he's in your personal space, if he's saying things to you feel offensive, like the woman in New York who called the police when the man told her dog needs to be on a leash, like she didn't give him any reason. He didn't give her any reason to be afraid of him. But
Right.
because he's Black, I mean to be afraid. And that's the thing that our narrative must change. I mean, there's no perfect race of people on the planet. We all do. There are Black murderers, white murderers, Hispanic murderers, every kind of murder. They're all. So why pigeonhole Black people into violence? That's all you people do is kill and rape and mob. Is that really it? Is that really true? Or is that the story that makes most sense for you to be comfortable with your ideology and your practice? Is that really what makes you most comfortable? So we have about 5 minutes. They're all yours. I'm sorry to blather on like that, but
No, don't apologize. Thank you again for sharing so much of your story. What are your hopes for these conversations?
one that, I think there are about 70, some of them now. I don't know how many there are, but there are a bunch that people look at each one.
Wow, 70? Did you say 70?
Yep, and I have probably 75 more to go right now. That's scheduled. So it's it's trying to do it and trying to find time when I can do my Duke work and do these chats. But I think that it's very important that people listen to each other's stories. So listen to the stories that white people tell. Listen to it, because maybe in there is a grain of hope that we can change the world. So if a white person says, in my house the racial slur was used all the time, and as I got older, I realized that's not good. That maybe somebody else will hear that and adopt that same philosophy. Or if you have mixed race kids, that you understand why a Black parent has this conversation with their child about when they're going out in society, how to stay safe. That you can listen to these things and hear, one, the pain that people are feeling, two, the fear that people are feeling, and the thoughts that people have for coming together as a part rather than pulling apart. Like, I think the person that we elected, I don't believe that the things that he says and does, he really believes. I believe that's what appeals to his base of people who voted for him and won him. If you look at him historically, I mean, yes, there have been lots of racist activities in his past, but he was not this person he is today. I mean, to make a statement on television that 99% of the people who have coronaviruses are harmless, there's something about that thought that's so mind-boggling that you can't even process that. So something else is leading his behavior. Something else is gearing that there. So he wants the economy to rebound. So that's why that statement is justified. I can say that because they're harmless. So everybody go out to the stores, go shopping, go on vacation, buy everything. Get the economy back online. That's putting money over lives. So I'm hoping that as people listen to these conversations, they find little grains that will help them move to the next place, help them learn, do, and change. Learn, do, and change. And I say that all the time. Learn, do, and change. So.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm very glad that we were able to have this chat. I'm probably going to ask you to chat with me again because I do have a lot of questions about religion and specifically Christianity and the logic of Christianity. So when you go back to the Roman Catholics and all these other people, like a lot of it does not make sense. But they were even destroying their own people, for whatever reason that made sense to them. So maybe there's something else even missing in the link to where we are right now, or where we were in 1619, or where we were with Jim Crow. Maybe there's a link that's missing that we haven't caught that justifies killing people for unorthodox reasons, for things that make no sense, like it's not logical, right? So that's what I hope. And I hope that, as you and your church continue to do the work that you all are doing, that you all look for the ways to unify as opposed to separate. Why wouldn't, if every church believes in a God and maybe believes in the same God, maybe he's the same God, maybe there's Muhammad for these people and there's, Buddha for these people, whoever it is, but at the same time, you're doing the exact same thing. So why not come together under a single thing, whatever you call God? I mean, if you wake up in the morning and you call God Joe, and he knows in your heart that's who you think he is, his name does not matter. His name does not matter. What matters is what his relationship is with you and how he receives you and how you receive him.
Yeah. I have a lot of questions too.
We can do this again. I promise. We can do this again. You know, maybe sometime late in the month or early August, we can do it again. I promise we can do it again, because I think this is a beautiful conversation, and it's wonderful to know that there are people out there that are thinking about these things and working through them. I would just tell you one thing: do not apologize. You know,
Thank you for saying that. I mean, thank you for helping me
yeah, apology.
in that way.
I need change. I don't want you to tell me you're sorry, you know, for this. You know, I mean, even the discussion of reparations, I think they should be done, but I don't want you to do it because you feel sorry for me. I don't want you to feel
Right.
like I want you to see me as human. So if you were talking to your sister or your brother and you said, wow, what an ugly hairdo you've got today, or you really need to comb your hair, you know, your sister or brother would hold no harm against you for saying that, because they know you and they're comfortable with you. So if something has happened in our generation between our two groups, the apology is nice, because I believe Bill Clinton apologized for slavery when he was the president, but we're still where we are. So let there be an action, not words, because, you know, I'm sure you tell your people this all the time. People lie every day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, words are easy. Words are cheap. They have to your point, right? There has to be an action, an embodiment behind them. And as Christians, that is the call of our faith.
right.
You know, there's a lot of questions I have about Christianity, and I'm the part of the story. There's many parts of the story I'm also grateful for. And one of those is that God is not a God that is distant. She comes close in body, put
Right.
on skin and bone, and walked and acted out love in the world. So that's a powerful reminder each and every day for us as Christians. So
Absolutely.
thank
And
you for.
before I go, I'm going to connect you to a Duke Divinity student. He just graduated last year. He's a police officer now, but I'm going to connect you to him.
Really?
He was a chaplain at UNC. I mean, young man, black man, young man, but I think the two of you could do some powerful work together. I really do. I think the two of you, because you have the same background, at least academically, and I think you all could share some common thoughts about these things, you know, and you know, I don't, not my area of expertise is religion, so I don't, but I do want to connect the two of you and let you two figure out how to think through this together, because I think he can give you some perspective and you can give him some perspective.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. Well,
That
thank
would
you
be great.
for chatting with me. As soon as this video is converted, I'll send you a link to it so you can watch it. If you have any issues, we can edit anything out that you don't feel is comfortable. If not, we'll post it so everybody can see it. And I think it's very important that they see this one.
Great. Thank you, Rochelle.
Thank you so much. Stay well.
You do the same. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.